Fado, fado. The Tuatha De Danann, a race of beautiful, tall, fair people, ruled Ireland for a very, very long time. And during that time, during that period, the land prospered. The summers were never too hot, the winters never too cold. There was never drought. There was never a difficulty with crops. The cows gave milk all year round. The trees bore mast. The rivers were full of beautiful salmon and healthy fish. The seasons came and went as they should, and nobody was cold or hungry, and there was no pain or sadness in the land. Now, at that time, 3 brothers, they were the grandsons of the Dagda, ruled Ireland, and they were Mac Cool, Mac Cecht, and Mac Graine. Now, Mac Cecht was named after Cecht, which means plough. And he was sort of the god of ploughing, if you like, and his wife was Fola. Mac Cool was called after Cul, the hazel, the magic tree, and his wife was Banba. And Mac Graine took for his name son of the sun, Graine being Irish for the sun, and his wife was Eru. Now, each of these 3 kings took turns on ruling Ireland for a year at a time, and each year Ireland was named for one of their goddess wives. Fola, Bamba, and Eru were the triple goddesses of the land. But the grandsons of the Dagda grew weary of their task and began to argue and fight. And each one proclaimed their superiority over the other. Mac Cecht said, without ploughing, we would have no food and the people would perish. Cole said, the magical hazel, how would we feed our pigs? And where do we get our knowledge from? Have you forgotten about the salmon, perhaps? Well, Mac Graine said, look, I don't know what the pair of you are talking about. No sun, no life. And things began to degrade to a point where the Tuatha De Danann were on the brink of war. Now, at this time, far, far away in Spain, there lived a wise old man called Ith Espana. Now, Ith had a habit of climbing the very tallest tower and to look out over the ocean. He just loved the sea. And one day he spotted a beautiful, shining emerald scepter, some kind of like almost mirage on the horizon. And he was overcome with a deep and unmoving longing. And he strained to see, and he strained to watch, and he strained to discern what this shape might be. And day in, day out, Ith would climb his tower and see, peered to find if it would clarify, if it would somehow reveal itself to him, because he was drawn irresistibly towards what this green spot was on the ocean. And eventually his vision cleared, because he was a magical person who had extraordinary skills. And through sheer persistence, he was able to resolve a beautiful island, so green it defied description. And Ith decided there and then that he was going to bring himself and all his people and go and live in this place, because surely it must be the most beautiful, most wondrous, most hospitable place in the whole of the universe. And he took to sea, and he took with him his family. However, when he arrived in this place with high mountains and green forests, and with his men, he wasn't quite sure where to go. And yet he found himself drawn along a path and arrived at Tara. Now, Macul, Macecht and Macrania welcomed him, as is the wont of Irish people, even the Danans at that time. And it wasn't long before they fell to arguing again about who was the greatest. And they asked Ith, what would he do? What did he think? And Ith told them that if it were he would just follow the laws and the customs of the land. Take the wisdom of the land, because surely it must be wise. Look at all this abundance. Look at all this beauty. Look at all this pulchritude. Why argue? It's just doing beautifully. Can you not just get along? But as he went on eulogizing about how wonderful this new land was, the lads got a bit of wind up them, because surely with this poem of praise and this long-winded description of Ireland, he must have had an agenda, this Ith. And they decided between them that he wanted to take the island from them, and he was set upon invading. So they set upon him and they killed him, and his men ran away back to the sea with their family. Now, when they arrived back in Spain, they immediately told the story of what had happened to poor old Ith. And his nephew, I guess, Mill, and his relatives were so angry at what had happened with the appalling treatment of their grandfather. Sorry, I'm talking about Mill. Excuse me for a second. I'm just going to get back on track. Okay. So when Ith's men brought news of his death back, his grandson Ith and his sons gathered all their men, all their families, a whole retinue, anybody who could fight, their elites, and they filled so many boats that they darkened the sea. And then they set sail, Mill and the sons of Mill set sail for Ireland to exact revenge for the death of Ith. Now, Mill died on the voyage, but his sons, Amergin, Erimon, and Eberdon, survived, and they decided to carry on with their father's wishes and continued on their way. Now, it must be remembered that Amergin was a very powerful druid and well used to magic, and he was quite wise. And when he came to the shores of Ireland, he sang a beautiful song announcing his presence and all the skills of magic and the love he had and the oneness he had with nature. The sons of Mill and their retinue journeyed to Tara and announced themselves to the three kings of the Tuatha De Danann, and explained that they had come to get revenge for the death of their grandfather. Now, the three kings agreed that obviously there had been a wrong, and they asked if the sons of Mill would respectfully allow them some time to either allow the sons of Mill take the land, if they could come to some kind of an arrangement, or if they would fight to retain Ireland. And the Milesians, the sons of Mill, said okay. They respected that. Amergin gracefully withdrew, and they were asked to withdraw for 9 waves, across 9 waves away from Ireland. And so they did. However, the De Danans were quite treacherous and went immediately back on their word. They had no intention of planning a battle or peace talks or anything like that. They were quite intent on making sure that the Milesians were drowned at sea, and they sang up a mighty, mighty storm, the like of which has never been seen in Ireland since. The rain, the wind, it was extraordinary, all across the land and right into the sea. And the sons of Mill and their ships were scattered and breaking up, and it was quite treacherous. However, Amergin, being the magic man that he was, sensed that this was not a normal storm. And so he sent one of his relatives up the mast to have a check, see what was going on. And as he climbed, being battered around by the storm and all the rest, he eventually got to the top of the mast, and just at the tip of it, he could see that all was calm and blue and beautiful above. So he shouted down that indeed this was a magical storm. And Amergin then was fit to be tied. He was so angry. So now Amergin called in all his druidic powers, and he was determined to defeat the Dadanan's magic. And he sang a powerful counter song that came from the core of his being against their songs, and this quietened the storm. And Amergin sang an invocation calling on the spirit of the land. And this has become known as the Song of Amergin. Would you like to hear a little bit of it? Shall I tell a little bit of it? Sandy, will I tell the Song of Amergin?
Yes, Fiona, go for it.
I'm so sorry, I can't hear very well.
I was muted.
Don't worry. This is probably not the best version, but I had to write it out because I can't remember stuff at the moment. So this is Amergin. Just imagine, there's been a massive storm, right? The place is in turmoil. There's bits of ships floating around the place. There's bodies in the water. And there's a very, very, very angry Amergin who pulls every part of his being and his soul together. And he makes this invocation. I am the sea blast. I am the tidal wave. I am the thunderous surf. I am the stag of the seven tines. I am the cliff hawk. I am the sunlit dewdrop. I am the fairest of flowers. I am the rampaging boar. I am the swift swimming salmon. I am the placid lake. I am the summit of art. I am the veil echoing voices. I am the battle-hardened spearhead. I am the god who inflames desire. Who knows the secrets of the unhewn dolmen? Who announces the ages of the moon? Who knows where the sunset settles? And with this enchantment, he was able to part the storm and bring some of the ships to safety to land. Now he was furious at the treachery of the Tuatha De Danann, and immediately, when the storm died down, decided to sail counterclockwise around the island of Ireland. And we all know what counterclockwise means, yeah? Counterclockwise, against the sun. And they sailed 3 times around Ireland. And finally, their boats made their way up the River Boyne. And they arrived at the plain of Taltu. Now, the Dadanans were waiting, and they had assembled their armies, and they had assembled their weapons, and the shining people were ready for the sons of Mill. However, they had underestimated the sons of Mill with their iron weapons and their ability to use their own magic. and a terrible battle ensued. Men and women were hacked down. The 3 kings of Tara were murdered, were killed. It has to be said that on the way to, the second time on the way through to Tara, each of the wives of the kings had met with Amergin and his men separately. They encountered them one by one. Bamba, Fola, and Eru, and each in turn agreed to allow the sons of Mill take over the land of Ireland on one condition, that Ireland was forever named for them. And in turn, Amergin agreed with each of them. Not a problem. Ireland will be called Fola, Bamba, or Eru. However, the battle, getting back to the battle, was so brutal that eventually the Dadanans called a truce and agreed to withdraw. But rather than stay in Ireland and pay tribute to these sons of Mill, rather than remember the tragedy, the appalling fate that had befallen upon them, they decided to leave Ireland to the sons of Mill. And they became clothed with the mist of invisibility, and they went, some say underground, but we really know that they took back their ownership of the hills. They went into the lakes and into the forests of Ireland. And to this day, the Dadanans are with us. In every outcrop you see, in every river, in every forest, they've never left. And interestingly, Ireland became known as Eru, or Eru gave her name to Ireland. And there we will leave the story for now.